Welcome back to another episode of the D2 Nation, sports fans. I'm your host, Wayne Cavadi, and as always, I'm joined by the GOAT of Kansas reporting, Bethany Bowman. While there's a lot of excitement brewing with the D2 fall tournaments a mere weeks away, the D2 men's and women's basketball seasons tipped off this past weekend. As if we weren't busy enough, Bethany, what do you think?
I know my head's spinning a little bit thinking about basketball starting up with football still going on and all the other fall sports, but really excited. We saw some top 25 action on the men and women's courts with the likes of West Texas A&M, Damon, and Drury on the court. But this weekend, we see the defending champs back in action as Northwest Missouri State heads to the Small College Basketball Hall of Fame Classic. Joining us today to talk about D2 Men's Hoops is the founder of Small College Basketball, John McCarthy, and the voice of the Small College Basketball podcast, Chris Cottrell. Welcome to the nation, guys.
So great to be here. Thanks, Bethany. Thanks, Wayne. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is terrific. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you both. Obviously, we were talking right before we came on. It's a lot of worlds colliding into one that I feel like this union should have been made years ago, but I'm glad we're all together finally in the same place. Obviously, you both know that for me, the Hall of Fame Classic is one of my favorite parts of the D2 men's basketball season, but we'll get to that in a little bit. John, why don't you start by telling the listeners a little bit about small college basketball and how you and the organization got to where it is today?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to have me on and be able to talk about small college basketball. It's a thrill to be with you, of course. And, it started as a vision, really, a dream. I've been working on documents on my computer I found from 2009 and eventually launched in 2015. I've had some thoughts, coming prior to launching this. I created the Collegiate Basketball Invitational and did something in Kansas City, the Start March event. And I continue to try to think about what can we do that is good for the game, that is genuinely good for the game of basketball at the small college levels. Frankly, it's what I know. I've, played Division III basketball a little bit, and a little bit of Division I. I coached at the NAI level. I coached at the Division II level as athletic director at Division II level and on the Division II National Committee. So this is what I know. And so I kept thinking about what can I do? But more importantly, I've started to feel like I would do something for a couple of years and move on to the next thing, and do something for a couple of years and move on to something else. And I really wanted to put together the pieces of something that will live on beyond me, that it's not about John McCarthy. It's about creating something to serve the players, the coaches, the contributors in the history of our game, and then move it on to somebody else who will keep the legacy going, keep the stories going, and preserve our history, tell our stories and preserve our history, and ultimately leave a legacy. So we've built the platform for the players, coaches, contributors, etc., in the history of our game. And as you've seen over the number of years, it's morphed very much by design. And we started with the Bevo Francis Award, the Hall of Fame, and the Hall of Fame Classic. Well, now we have 4 national awards, a pretty thriving social media and website. We're thrilled to bring Chris on board to launch the podcast. We announced the Champions Classic, which will begin in 2022, and we continue to enhance what we're doing for those players, coaches, and contributors. And to be honest, behind the scenes, it's a lot of time and effort. It's an incredible amount of time and effort. And sometimes I think my wife wonders what the heck I'm doing and why I'm putting so much time and effort. But then you go to the Hall of Fame induction, you go to the award ceremony, you go to the celebration of the game events, and you go to what we've put together. And it's just those moments when you say, take that deep breath and say, this is why we do it. It's all worth it when you see the excitement from inductees and from the teams and the coaches and so on. It's just the appreciation that we've heard over the years for what we've put together. It's pretty special, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about it. Thank you.
And I think one thing like to point out for the listeners is, that you mentioned it, but it's unbelievable the work you do, because it's not just D2. I know this is the D2 Nation podcast, but you do small college, but everything that's not D1, you have coverage on, and it amazes me. Every time I go to the site or I see one of your tweets, it's remarkable. The work you do is incredible.
So just for definition, first of all, thank you very much for recognizing that and throwing that out there. But one of the things I get asked a lot is, what's small college basketball? How do you define what's small college? And the term we use is that small college is all four-year college basketball that is non-NCAA Division I. Frankly, I don't like to use the term below. That implies that it's not as good as, and those student athletes play just as hard and compete and practice and work their tails off. So I don't like to use the term below, but it's all four-year college basketball that is non-NCAA Division I, which in today's world, that's NCAA Division II, NCAA Division III, the NAI, the USCAA, and the NCCAA. So depending on the year and some movement of teams in and out of different divisions, it's roughly 11 to 1,200 colleges and universities around the country we represent. So to be honest, it's a lot of information that's out there. And I'd like to think that I have a pretty good grasp collectively by spending so much time on this. However, let be in full reality is I don't know it all. I'm getting a little bit better at listening to people because I'm realizing that I really learn by listening to others, by reading a tremendous amount, watching a tremendous amount, reading all the emails that are sent to me, the tweets that are sent, et cetera. So for those that are listening, keep sending information because we're able to then take our vehicle and push it back out. So please send me emails, send me tweets, send information because I don't pretend to know it all. I don't.
Well, first of all, here, I'll say, how dare I forget to introduce our fifth guest. Chris, I see your dog has joined.
Yeah, that is Jasta, and my wife is gone tonight. She's on her way back from school. So the alternative is to have her scratching and barking outside the office door. I figured this would be the lesser of two evils. So Jasta is here. She's joining us tonight. So thanks, Bethany.
That's okay. But Chris, you had some experience on the D2 basketball court yourself before you started your Bonafide basketball podcast. Now you host the Small College Basketball podcast. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
My journey started, I tell everyone, my journey started as a child. As a kid, my dad coached basketball at the high school that I went to, very close friends with the coaching staff there, Bob Hummel, and had a chance to go to college. Live in upstate New York, and my parents gave me the opportunity to go 12 hours away. That was the max that we agreed on. So we didn't have, Apple Maps or Google Maps or anything. So I figured out what was 12 hours away. I picked High Point University, North Carolina, and that's where I ended up. I went as far south as I could to get away from the snow and the weather. Spent 4 years at High Point, had the opportunity to work for Bart Lundy, who is now the head men's basketball coach at Queens. Worked with Josh Schertz, who is now the head men's basketball coach at Indiana State. And Josh hired me to go to Lincoln Memorial. I spent 7 years at Lincoln Memorial as Josh's first assistant. Spent 3 years at Davis and Elkins College in West Virginia, Division II as a head coach, and bounced around the Southeast a little bit and spent my time away from my family, spent my time chasing the dream, and decided 5 years ago to come home and be closer to my family, settle down a little bit. Took a high school teaching and coaching job, first at Hudson Falls, and I got to work for a tremendous mentor, Vince Medici. Spent 2 years with him, and now I'm coaching at a local school, South Glens Falls, and I've been there. This is my third season, so we just wrapped up open gym. We're getting ready to tip off here with tryouts in about 2 weeks. So the small college, Hall of Fame Classic is coming at a great time. I can't wait to get out to Kansas City. I'm going to be joined by my wife. We're going to watch a ton of basketball, which I'm sure she's thrilled about. So we're going to watch a ton of basketball, cover some of these great teams. And my journey's been just so special. I love what basketball has been able to do for me, and getting to know John, just his mission statement of what we're trying to do at small college basketball, to give the players, the coaches, the contributors, the alumni a platform, and to celebrate their accomplishments beyond, the accomplishments beyond Division I, just speaks to me. I was a D2 guy. I toiled in the trenches for seven years. I was a manager for 5 years. So just the experience of working without necessarily being recognized, I think means a lot to me, that we can showcase these athletes, these coaches who are so special and so talented in their own right.
And I'll follow up with, when was your first experience or idea? When did the light bulb come on for podcasts?
Last year during the pandemic in New York, our state athletic association announced that there would be no winter sports. There would be no indoor sports. We canceled all sports. So my wife basically said, you need to find something to do because you're driving me crazy. No, she didn't. But I said, I needed something to do. I was going crazy without basketball. Normally we're in the gym getting our preseason stuff in starting October 1, and we go all the way through, April into May with off-season activities. And I was going crazy. I missed basketball. I missed, watching and talking to coaches and being around the competition. And I said, I'm going to start a podcast. I had enough connections to get it off the ground. I was lucky to be joined by Bart and Josh, and I had Patrick Pritz on and Commissioner Racy from the MIAA. I mean, I had a terrific group of guests that had allowed me to get it off the ground, John and Wayne included. And it was nice. I watched a ton of basketball. I got to dive deep into some coaching conversations. And eventually we came to the idea that maybe small college basketball needs a voice out there in the podcast world. So here we are.
Awesome. So John, last week we did have Trevor Hudgins on the D2 Nation, who is no stranger to the Hall of Fame Classic, and he told us why he loved it. How did the tournament come about, and how does it make you feel knowing it is a staple of the college basketball season now?
I watched the podcast with Trevor. You guys did a great job, and he did as well as normal. As a freshman on Trevor and the Hall of Fame Classic, just as a note, I'll get back to the full question in a moment, but he redshirted his first year with Justin Pitts there, and they have win the national title. And there's all these questions, of course, as geez, Justin Pitts is gone and Ibu's gone, and how are they going to be? They got this freshman backcourt, and I would tell you, I was just thrilled to be there in hindsight. Well, even at the time, to see the very first two college basketball games that Trevor and Diego played together. Not only did they go 2-0 during that event, but Trevor was the MVP of the entire thing in his first two games of playing college basketball. And you fast forward and end up 38-0 and win the national title. And he's the MVP of the Elite Eight. So he's the MVP of the first two games he plays in our Hall of Fame Classic. And then, a few months later, he's the MVP of the Elite Eight. So what a neat deal for Trevor. Of course, he likes our event. He's the MVP of the darn thing. And they haven't, and they played it the next year, and they win again. They win both games again. So I think they're happy to be back. Yeah. And so it came about really with a thought really of how cool would this be to bring some of the very best teams in all of Division II to start the season. And so we started with 6 teams. We didn't have an exemption. We started at the Ford Center in Evansville. And what made the event, actually Chris was there. He's coaching at Lincoln Memorial at the time with Josh, and Lincoln Memorial is one of the original teams in. I suppose it might help that Josh and I had been good friends and coached together before he even went to Lincoln Memorial. And so we had Lincoln Memorial and Bellarmine and Southern Indiana, Kentucky Wesleyan, Alabama Huntsville. I might be missing somebody, Chris, Florida Southern. But the induction ceremony that was part of that to begin with, if you enjoy basketball and you're a historian, it was pretty darn neat that we started it with that in person with the induction class. We had Earl DePro Monroe, Jerry Sloan, Travis Grant, Dick Barnett, Lucius Jackson, John Rinka, and John Ebling came in from Italy. And then I had this incredible privilege of introducing the Naismith family onto stage. And so from a combined event, you got 6 of the top teams in the country in Division II. And then you've got this Hall of Fame class that brings such great credibility to it. So by the second year, we got the exemption from the NCAA Conference Commissioners Association. And I need to make sure I throw out a huge thank you to the Conference Commissioners Association, because not only they give the exemption, we've now extended it for multiple years for the event. We expanded to 8 teams. And so we're thrilled that this will be the 5th playing of it. COVID canceled things last year, 5th induction class and 5th playing of the event. And what a thrill. I mean, if you're a basketball junkie, you come to the Hall of Fame induction, you've got press conferences, a panel discussion, a Hall of Fame induction, and 8 games in 2 days. And Chris, I know I'm getting even more excited to come on out there once again. So it's just a thrill. If you're a basketball junkie, if you love Division II basketball and the history of our game, the combination's pretty neat.
Yeah. And like I said, I love watching it. It's a great way to start the season. Chris, let's talk to you for a little bit, because you did mention that I was on your podcast, and I always had fun. And I felt like we had to stop, or we would have gone for like 6 hours. Like, we would just get into those conversations. And most of the times you'd put me on the spot and ask me about teams. So now that I'm the host, I can flip the switch. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Tell us all a little bit about teams you're watching, and maybe some early contenders for what you think might make up the D2 Men's Elite Eight.
Well, I got a ton of notes here, and it could go for 6 hours, but let's not do that. You have to start. I think you have to start with the top team in the country, Northwest Missouri State, Ben McCollum. I was fortunate enough to have Coach McCollum on one of our first episodes. And he's got just a great demeanor. He was a terrific interview. And the more you watch their team play, the more you see, the more you see like Trevor Hudgins and like how they play is a direct relationship to like how he coaches. He's so even keeled. He's so intelligent. They play so well together. I love Northwest Missouri State. I think it's hard. They have 6 guys back that all played more than 15 minutes a game last year, defending national champions. I mean, you can't pick against them, right? You just can't pick against Northwest Missouri State. So I think we'll see them be number 1 in the country for a while. And I could be surprised, I could be shocked, but I think we'll see Northwest Missouri State at the top without a doubt. If you look at the top 6 in the D2 in your top 10, preseason poll, Flagler returns Jay Ziclotti. They return inside presence Chris Megzer. I like the fact that they also add some transfers to the list too. They've got Curtis Lewis and Kobe Roberts coming in. So Flagler, I think, is going to be really good. West Texas A&M is a unique case to me. They lose Quay Grant and they lose Joel Murray. They lose those 2 like big time guards, but they come back. They get a transfer from Lincoln Memorial, Julius Brown. They're 3-0. I'm thinking as they're entering the preseason tournament, a lot of questions around West Texas A&M, and they go out and they look great. I mean, they just look great. Julius Brown looked great. He's really good. I think out west, you've already, as I'm looking through my notes, out west, you've already got, a Point Loma with a Division I win in an exhibition game. In the Midwest, Ashland's already beat a Division I in an exhibition game. I really like, I do really like Colorado School of the Mines. They return Kobe Betts at point guard. They've got Ben Boone who can really shoot it. I like Titus Reed. I like Brendan Sullivan. I think they're really good. You look at Colorado Mesa, they return everybody, 7 other top 8. Ethan Menzies, Georgie Dozier. I mean, so I think what we're going to see, to shorten it up a little bit, in this college basketball season is going to be very similar to what we're seeing at the Division I level now. Like, what wins the Division I is getting old, staying old, getting guys who, even though they're a transfer, maybe they come in with a lot of experience, they're able to gel into your system right away. I think we're going to see the same thing in Division II basketball. You look at the Elite 8 last year: Lincoln Memorial, Damon, West Texas A&M, Northwest Missouri State, Truman, West Lib, Flagler, Colorado School of Mines. All those teams, veteran-laden teams, just teams with veterans, maybe an impact freshman here and there, an impact transfer here and there, but veteran-laden teams. I think we're going to see the same thing this year, especially with the NCAA allowing an extra year of eligibility. I think Truman State is a team I want to keep an eye on because they have 4 starters back, but the way they play is so balanced. I think we saw this last year in the national championship game. You're thinking, I know I was thinking to myself, okay, if I'm Coach McCollum, we're playing a West Texas A&M guard attack that I don't know that we can guard. Can we keep our bodies in front of them and play our man-to-man defense? They're so good, 5 guys driving the ball. And you look at at West Texas A&M trying to guard Ryan Hawkins, Player of the Year, and Northwest Missouri State. And what won out, it was Northwest Missouri State's ability to play both ways. They were able to guard defensively and then throw it inside and take advantage offensively of Ryan Hawkins. I think Truman State is a team that can play multiple ways just like Northwest Missouri State did last year. So I like the balance that Truman State has. I like the balance that a team like Queens has in the Southeast with Coach Lundy. I mean, Kenny Dye is like an awesome point guard. He gets the ball to shooters in the pocket. He makes plays. He's the all-time single-game assist leader in Queens history. But they also have a transfer, B.J. McCollum, coming in, and they have Gavin Raines on the interior. So, again, another team that can play inside out. They can play a multitude of ways, a multitude of styles against anything they see. I think we're going to see a lot of that this year. Seattle Pacific, we're waiting to see what they do this year. We're waiting to see how they come out. Embry-Riddle, they have an elite point guard in Romeo Crouch. They have 3 other returners back. You're talking about guys who were preseason All-Americans going in the 1920 that didn't play. So how do they respond this year? Like I said, Ashland, I think, has 6 guys back, 6 of the top 7 back from last year. Again, getting old, staying old. Teams that were able to take advantage of that extra year of eligibility, players that taking advantage of it. Andrew Sisho at Damon, probably the best forward in the country, averages a double-double, 27 and 13 last year. Those are unheard of numbers. Those are Oscar Robertson numbers to go small college basketball for people. Like those are ridiculous, you know? And so I think we're going to see a lot of teams that are going to be in contention. At the top, though, it's hard to go against Northwest Missouri State.
Yeah, I think just touching on I agree with so much of what you said. I think that Damon and St. Thomas battle in the East is going to be so much fun again. One other thing about Ashland, I think Ashland's really a team to watch, especially in the new conference. You know, they're GMAC now. I think that's going to be interesting to watch. And the West Texas A&M thing, man, you nailed it. It was like, it wasn't just 2 players they lost. It was Murray and Grant who were like, and they came out and they looked like nothing happened. And it just a real testament to what Coach Brown has going on down there. But that's a good segue, because now we could, with, mentioning Grant and Murray, we could talk about the Bevo Francis Award. And that it's basically the Small College Basketball Player of the Year award. And as I think John's a good person to talk to, because I would tweet at John last year, just, I'd ask him a question about a player and I would get probably a response about this long, about more in-depth insight than I've ever could imagine. And I loved it, because I would keep tweeting you and keep asking you for more information. So talk a little bit about the award itself and how you compile it, across every level that we were talking about. And then a couple of D2 players you think are good contenders for the 21-22 season.
Sure. It started with a conversation with Jeff Lanham, who's the longtime athletic director at the University of Rio Grande. I was I don't know if infatuated is the right word, but I knew the Bevo Francis story from the time I was a sophomore in high school. I first heard of Bevo Francis, and it was almost like a fairy tale when you heard the numbers he put up and saving the school from bankruptcy and the story itself. And I don't want to give away too much, but we will be working on a bit of a documentary piece. I've already just met with his wife and grandchildren and so on. We're going to be launching a lengthy documentary with many parts to it. And the Bevo Francis story will certainly be a key component of that documentary piece. And so I got to know Jeff Lanham very well at Rio Grande. And in conversation when we were starting small college basketball, I told him what we'd like to do is help keep his legacy alive and also help tell the stories and keep small college basketball and the top players in the limelight, if you will, provide a platform for the top players. And as you know, we put out the watch list of 100 players, and then we reduce it to 50 a month later, and then to 25, and then the video of the finalists, and then the video of the award winner, and then we bring that person to the National Awards Show. And so we thought it's a platform to keep Bevo's story alive and to highlight the very top players in all of small college. And so just before Bevo passed away, we got his blessing to name the award after him. And several months later, he passed away. And so we do it for those reasons. And we're fortunate the University of Rio Grande helps to sponsor the award. And I'm a little biased, but it's I found out something this summer that somebody created a Wikipedia page now for the Bevo Francis Award, and just made me feel really good about the credibility. And I thank you, Wayne, really for all the time and effort you've put to push out the information nationally as well, and all the schools. Once somebody makes a watch list, it's really neat to see all the tweets and the schools putting out their press release about their player being on the watch list. So we have now awarded this 5 times. I'd like to think that starting 5 is pretty darn good, by the way. We've got the first year with Dominez Burnett, who was the 2-time NAI Division II Player of the Year from Davenport, ended up breaking the all-time scoring record in the state of Michigan at the collegiate level. And then Justin Pitts, who you're very well aware of, Northwest Missouri State, the next year. And then it was Emmanuel Terry, who was just so dominant in so many different ways at Lincoln Memorial. And then Aston Francis, oh, what a show he put on at Wheaton! Just such a thrill to watch. And then Kyle Mangus, one of the all-time greatest NAI players and careers that anyone has had. And so collectively, it's been great to bring attention not just to the winners. Clearly, they get a lot of attention, but to all the people that we recognize during the course of that process. So the intent that we started with, I'm just so pleased and proud that it's working. It's bringing great attention to those players and those programs. But I'm certainly going to mention some of the players, as you alluded to. But I do want to mention, and I don't have it specifically in front of me, but what we're looking for through this process. Clearly, we're looking for some of the top players in all of small college. I think that's pretty obvious. But we're also looking for players. It's a season award, not a career award. So it's not just, hey, last year you averaged 25 a game. Well, if this year you're struggling and your team is struggling, we're focusing on the season itself, not career. And we do take into consideration team success too. You know, there's a lot of really good players that are on teams that are 5 and 25. And so we'll highlight those players throughout the season and the great things they're accomplishing. But for this award, it is an individual award clearly at the end of it. But we very much take into account how they impact their own team and how they help their team win. And so I just want to throw that out there that it's, I get a lot of emails about the Bevo Francis Award and a lot of people making their case for their players, which is great. Keep them coming because that's how we learn. And we have a committee that we put together that represents Division II and III and NAI and then from different parts of the country. And I consistently ask for information from them. We'll hold conference calls and continue to circulate emails, trying to gather as much information as we can. And what is incredible to me, whether we're putting together the list of 100 players, 50, 25, et cetera, how excruciating it is to try to eliminate anybody from this list. And you'd think initially, well, gosh, there's 100 players. So, that should be easy on 100 players. You start thinking about what distinguishes 101 versus 110th best versus the 125th best player. It is so difficult to try to figure that out. But the other thing I want to bring up is that this is an evolving process throughout the season. And we've had this situation where a player was not on the original list of 100, but ends up on a list of 50, where that may sound, counterintuitive, sound ridiculous, but people play themselves onto the list over the course of time, or frankly, we may find out more information about players. So to kind of get to the point, I think we start with Trevor Hudgins, right? I mean, defending Division II National Player of the Year in the NABC and about every publication you can think of. Trevor's certainly, in that discussion off the bat. And again, it goes back to how they play this coming year. But then I know, Wayne, I know one of your favorites, and the same with Chris, is Andrew Sisko. And in addition to what a tremendous player he is, he's a terrific young guy. Although I still like, and if you're listening, Andrew, I want you to take it easy on our rims. We had to delay the game when he played in the Hall of Fame Classic a little bit ago from dunking in warmups, and ended up moving the rim. He's so big and strong, and but a terrific young guy. Jay Ziclotti obviously is at towards the very top of the list. and another super young guy, great personality, and man, he can flat out play. One that often doesn't get talked about much, in part because geographically where he is, and the other part because they didn't play last year, is Shadid Shabazz out in Alaska, the GNAC Rookie of the Year and Player of the Year in the GNAC in his first season there a little bit ago, put up pretty remarkable numbers. So I'm anxious to watch him play more throughout this year. I watched a bit of highlights, pretty impressive. Other terrific players that sometimes get overlooked are people like Jordan Guest at Lincoln Memorial, who was so loaded last year with so much depth and so many good players. Well, when Josh leaves, three really good players go with him. Point guard transfers to West Texas A&M, and you look and say, Jordan was fantastic. If you look at the Elite Eight and the regional tournament game, 6'9", big, strong, can shoot it inside out. He can play. Caden Anderson at Point Loma Nazarene is terrific out there. One that I know we all like. How do you not like Tyler Guyman at Washburn? Oh. My gosh, talk about tough, and a heart that's probably bigger than his body. Just a winner. I just cannot help but like him. How about Patrick Cartier and what he did in his sophomore year at Hillsdale was just terrific. Chris, you talked quite a bit about Truman, who's a well-balanced team. Those guards are tough, I might add. But Cade McKnight really came on strong throughout all of last year as the GLVC Player of the Year last year. Stack is loaded with 3 key returnees. They've got more than that, but 3 key returnees. And Grant Singleton was the Player of the Year in the whole Met area at the small college level. Romeo Crouch is terrific and didn't play last year. Embry-Riddle. There's so many good ones. But here's one that gets overlooked because the numbers aren't huge. But if you watch the contributions on how people impact their team winning, how about a Diego Bernard that sometimes gets overlooked because everybody talked about Ryan Hawkins and Trevor, which, by the way, they deserve every bit of that. But offensively and defensively and all the little things that help you win, I'll tell you what, Diego Bernard's pretty darn good. You put him on almost any other team in the country, maybe not everyone, but he's best player on most teams in Division II in the country. So there's so many other ones. How about Armani Foster at IUP, who didn't barely play last year at IUP, is terrific. Pat Robinson's back at West Liberty. When Dalton Bolin moved on, now it's Pat Robinson's team, and you got Will Yoakum coming back as well. Ricky Lujan's terrific down at Dallas Baptist. And then how about Casey Jones at Emmanuel? Was terrific in his sophomore year, so athletic, long, and just getting better and better. TJ Rosine is such a terrific coach. So, the one that I have not seen that I'm embarrassed to admit this because he put up terrific numbers, I'm really anxious to watch, is out in Michigan, and Michigan Tech is Owen White. His numbers were terrific last year. He helped his team considerably, and I'm anxious to see him play. He put up terrific numbers last year. So certainly the list can go on and on, as you know, and I'll stop rambling for the moment, but I love this stuff, and I'm just anxious to see all these guys play and so many others this season.
And John, you got me fired up to go watch some highlight tapes of some of those names, and you can definitely tell you're very passionate about it. So that's awesome to see. And I think we'll have some guys burst onto the scene that we might not know preseason. That always happens every year. So that'll be exciting to see happen. And we could go on for hours about it, but we'll stop there and have you both back come March when basketball season is in full swing and when the tourney starts. But John or Chris, please give yourselves a little plug and let people know all the places that they can find you on social media or websites and such.
Chris, do you want to go first? Fire away.
Sure. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn, all coach_Cottrell_.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. This was awesome. So glad we got to do this. And John and I'll talk for 6 hours probably at the Hall of Fame Classic this weekend.
So to answer your question, Bethany, and thanks for the plug there. Smallcollegebasketball.com is the hub for the website. The Twitter account's quite active, as you're aware, at SM College Hoops. It's SM College Hoops, and on the blog, which is we're fortunate thousands of people have taken the automatic feed to that, is no www. It took me a while to figure that out. It's just smallcollegebasketball.tumblr, TUMBLR.com. So smallcollegebasketball.tumblr.com, and you can certainly reach me if you want to send a direct email in regards to the Bevo Francis Award, Hall of Fame inductees, different awards that we've got out there. It's lengthy but easy. Smallcollegebasketball smallcollegebasketball@gmail.com. So smallcollegebasketball@gmail.com if you'd like to send any information. And again, please do send information by email, send it through a direct message on Twitter. We often, and I get this a lot from coaches, we'll often just retweet what you've said. You want to get it out there to the thousands of followers, that's what we're trying to do. And I do want to just finish with a comment about that. Is our platform, very much by design, is used to be as a force for good for players, coaches, contributors, the history of the game. By design, I'm an old coach, and I've fortunately, I've got, like Chris, a lot of relationships with coaches with a lot of trust. By design, we are not investigative reporters. I know a lot of stuff from a lot of coaches that we don't put out there by design. We are here as a vehicle to promote our game, the players, coaches, contributors, and history of our game. So if you've got good stuff that you want us to promote and push out there, good, positive stories, send them to us. We want to put those out there. We want to put them out through social media, on our website. We'll feed them to Chris to talk about on the webcast. So please send us your great stories so we can retell them and tell them to a larger audience. So Wayne and Bethany, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on. It's just a real pleasure to be on with both of you. And you too, Chris.
Thanks, John.
Well, very special thank you to you both as well. And we're very happy to have you. And speaking of plugs, remember D2 Nation, we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, YouTube, and just about anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Give us a follow, and we'll see you next week on the D2 Nation.